All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving right into the opening of the Quran's longest chapter, Al-Baqarah. And what's wild is that in just the first 20 verses, it lays out what it claims is a complete map of the human condition. Seriously, it's this incredibly bold opening statement that basically claims to categorize every single one of us. So let's jump in and see how it pulls this off.
So, think about it. If you have a book that claims to be from God, how do you even begin? What's the very first thing you want people to know? Well, it doesn't kick off with a story or a history lesson or even a command. Nope. It starts with a total mystery. Something designed to make you stop and say, wait, what?
It just opens with 3 letters from the Arabic alphabet. Aleph, Lam, Mim. That's it. Now, their exact meaning is a mystery, something scholars say is known only to God. But the traditional understanding, it's seen as this profound, immediate challenge. It's as if God is saying, see these letters? They're the same building blocks you use for your own words and poetry. Now watch what I build with them, and just try to create something like it. Right from the jump, it's asserting that it's a miracle. And then, boom. Right after that mystery, you get this incredibly confident, unwavering statement. This is the book, and in it there is no doubt. Just pause on that for a second. The sheer certainty of that claim is just massive. And then it tells you its purpose. It is a book of guidance. But, and this is a huge but, it immediately clarifies that this guidance isn't just for anybody and everybody. It's specifically for a certain type of person, a group it calls those conscious of Allah. So that's the big question, right? Who are these people? Who are the muttaqeen, the ones who are actually ready to plug into this guidance? Well, the Quran doesn't leave you hanging. The very next verses lay out a super detailed profile. The whole thing boils down to this one core quality called taqwa. Now, you often hear this translated as fear of God, but that really doesn't do it justice. It's more like a constant protective awareness. Imagine you're walking barefoot on a path that's just covered in thorns. Think about how careful you'd be, how mindful of every single step. That's taqwa, but in a spiritual sense. It's the state of being so conscious of God's presence that you naturally, carefully guard yourself against doing wrong. It's literally the key that unlocks the entire book. And this isn't just some vague feeling. The Quran breaks taqwa down into 5 very specific, actionable qualities. First, you have to believe in the unseen. That's the bedrock of faith, right? Believing in what you can't see. Then you have actions, establishing prayer, which connects you to God, and giving in charity, which connects you to other people. It also demands that you believe in the whole chain of revelation, that this message confirms what came before it. And it all leads up to this final critical point, having absolute rock-solid certainty in the hereafter. It's a complete blueprint for a life of faith.
And the payoff for this group? The text is crystal clear. These people are the ones who are truly on guidance from their Lord. They're the muflihun, the ones who are genuinely successful. So there you have it. The first category of humanity is now locked in, the guided. Okay, so after laying out the ideal profile for guidance, the chapter just pivots hard. It immediately turns to the opposition. And the first group it details are the ones who are all about outright open rejection. No hiding, no games. And the language it uses here is pretty intense. It talks about people who are so stubborn in their disbelief, so set in their ways, that they've basically slammed the door shut themselves. It gets to a point where it doesn't matter if you warn them or you don't warn them, it makes absolutely no difference. They simply will not believe.
To describe their condition, the Quran uses these really powerful metaphors. It says their hearts and their hearing are sealed, and that there's a veil over their vision. This isn't physical blindness or deafness, of course. It's a spiritual state. It's saying that as a direct result of their own persistent rejection, they've actually lost the spiritual capacity to see the truth. They're in a state of being willingly blind and deaf to the message. And that brings us to the third and final group, the hypocrites. And you can tell this group is a huge deal because the focus shifts dramatically. The Quran spends almost double the number of verses describing them compared to the other 2 groups combined. That fact alone tells you how significant and, frankly, how dangerous this category is considered.
Their whole deal is deception.
On the outside, they say all the right things. Oh yeah, we believe in God, we believe in the last day. But on the inside, they're not believers at all. And the text points out this incredible, tragic irony. They think they're deceiving God and the believers, but the only people they're actually fooling are themselves.
I mean, just look at this disconnect. They claim they're here to make things better, but their actions actually spread corruption. They claim to be on the believer's side, but then they go and mock them in private. The Quran diagnoses this internal mess with a really potent metaphor. It says there is a disease in their hearts. Not a physical sickness, but a spiritual one. A sickness of doubt, envy, and arrogance that just festers and gets worse over time.
And to really make you understand what this inner state feels like, the text doesn't just describe them, it paints these incredibly vivid pictures for us, using two powerful parables that give us a window right into their confused and chaotic minds.
So, the first parable is about a person who manages to light a fire. For just a moment, everything around them is lit up and clear. You could say that's them getting a little taste of guidance, a moment of clarity. But because their faith isn't sincere, that light gets snatched away from them, and they are left behind in a deep, terrifying darkness, completely unable to see.
The second image is even more chaotic. It's a massive, violent storm. Every time the lightning flashes, they see the path for a split second, and they hurry forward. That's them benefiting from their association with Islam when things are good. But the second the darkness comes back, they're just frozen in place, totally lost. And the thunder? That represents the warnings in the Quran. It terrifies them so much that they literally plug their ears, trying to block it all out. So what's the point of these two images? The takeaway is that the hypocrite lives in this state of constant, gut-wrenching instability. They're not fully committed believers, but they're not open rejectors either. They are completely trapped in this chaotic, fearful no man's land, constantly being jerked between these brief flashes of light and then plunged back into overwhelming darkness and confusion. So, when you put it all together, what have we got? In just 20 verses, right at the start, the Quran has laid out this comprehensive map of the human heart. It has sorted literally everyone into one of three fundamental camps based entirely on how they respond to the message of guidance. So there they are, the three core responses. You have sincere acceptance, you have open rejection, and you have hidden deception. And what's really fascinating, as you can see, is where the focus lies. The vast majority of this whole introduction is spent on that third group, the deceivers. It's almost as if the Quran is signaling that while clear belief and clear disbelief are straightforward, the real danger, the real complexity, lies in that murky gray area of the human heart. And that really leaves us with this final, crucial question to think about. In laying out this map of humanity, why does the Quran spend the most time, use the most powerful language, and paint the most vivid pictures to describe the hypocrite? What does that tell us about the spiritual state that this text considers to be the most perilous for the human soul?